Hey guys, happy Friday. Hope everybody's had a really good week and that you're ready for some new learning. I don't know about you, but I'm really tired of all this rain. So I thought I would decorate our classroom to make it a little bit more festive and springy, okay? So to start, like always, I want you to push pause on this video and I want you to go and get a pencil and paper so we can write down our new spelling words. Okay, so you should have your new pencil and paper. And to start our lesson, we're going to review our old spelling words that we did for last week, last time we were together. So, if you remember, our spelling words are going based on the 4 sounds that we learned from our phonics the last time we were together. So we learned TH says th, WH says w, CH says ch, and SH says sh. So we've already done TH words, and last week when we were together we did WH words. So last week we learned the word what, we learned the word where, we learned the word which had 2 meanings, remember? We learned the word when, and we learned the word who, which is the funny one that we have to stick in our head or memorize. So for this week, we are going to learn the CH family, which is ch. So our first word that we're going to learn is the word each. Each. So I'll put that word up here. Each of you is special. Each. Okay. The next one is the word chin. Chin. This is my chin. Chin. My next word is the word chips. Chips. I love chips. We're sticking together. My next word is the word chair. Chair. I sit on a chair. And the last one is the word much. Much. I miss you very, very much. Okay, so those are your CH, ch family words that we're going to learn for this week. Okay, remember, write the words down. You can write them in sentences. You should be reading them every day, and you should know how to spell these words as well. Okay, friends? All right, I'm going to take those off. Okay, we are going to go over your new homework. I have put your homework in the mail, put it in the mail on Wednesday, so you should receive it early next week. Probably by Tuesday you'll have your homework. And just like our room, our homework is now all spring themed as well. So we're going to be learning about animals, and we're going to be learning about the sunshine, and we're going to be learning about all different kinds of things that represent spring. Okay, so to start off, I've taken a break from our word family poems. And I have started with little, just reading poems. So this is 2 samples of 2 of the poems that you might be getting in your package. Okay, so what I want you to do is just read the poems, and then you can color the pictures, and you can maybe write a sentence about the poem that you've read, or a story about the poem. So this is a poem about spring. So it says, spring is flowers, ready to grow. Spring is grass, ready to mow. Spring is birds, building a nest. Spring is busy with little rest. So as a follow-up for this, you could write a story about spring, or you can write a sentence about spring, or maybe you just copy out the poem so you practice writing down your words. Okay, so there are 4 poems for you to read about spring. For your writing, we've done a couple things. It goes along with spring as well. There is this one, which was the Earth Day writing sample that we did in our last video. So you can rewatch that video if you need some extra help for that. But you're going to be writing about how you can take care of the earth. So we learned about different ways in our last video, in the Earth Day video, of how to conserve energy. So these would be good examples that you could do for this writing. There are also 2 papers all about frogs. So in springtime, all the animals are having their babies and frogs go from tadpoles to frogs, and all of these things happen in the pond. Everything kind of wakes up. So frogs are a really cool thing that we can learn about. And in your epic, I have assigned you a collection of books all about frogs. So there's a couple videos and there's a couple books. Read the books and they'll be able to help you with this, okay? It's a little bit like a research project that you can do. So for the first paper, it says all about frogs, and there are different sections. This one says habitat. A habitat is where a frog lives, the environment. So do frogs live on Mars? Do frogs live in a wooden house? No, frogs live in a pond. So you would talk about the ponds that frogs live in. Maybe they jump on lily pads. Maybe they have fish in their pond. So you're going to describe the environment that a frog lives in. The next one says diet. So this doesn't mean that the frog has to go on a diet. Diet means what the frog eats. So a frog's not eating ice cream and hot dogs. You need to write down from your research that you're doing in your books, write down the foods that frogs eat. So frogs eat flies, frogs might eat other insects. So you're going to write down what a frog eats, what you've learned about from reading your epic books. And the last one was 2 interesting facts. So I want you to tell me 2 interesting things that you learned about frogs from our epic books. Okay, so that's our first writing activity on frogs. The second writing activity is you're going to write a story, kind of not a made-up story, a story based on facts. You're going to tell me all about frogs. So you can draw a picture of the frogs. There is a really cool book that I put in there, and it's about poisonous dart frogs. And they are really bright colors. They're beautiful. They are poisonous, but they're beautiful frogs. And that book has a lot of really cool facts that you can learn about different kinds of frogs. Okay, so tell me 4 or 5 facts that you learned about frogs. Draw a picture about frogs, and that's how you would do that writing activity. All right, my friends? And the last writing activity that you're going to do, it's coming in 2 papers that look like this. So it says, if I were a bug. And then there's this paper too. What you're going to do, it's kind of like a craft that goes together. So Miss Herman did a sample of this. So I colored the bug, and then I've just glued it at the top of the paper. So you'll have a little cute little picture that you can hang on your wall to go along with your writing. And then tell me all about a bug. If you were a bug, what would you do if you were a bug? Would you maybe fly around all day? Would you sit on a toadstool and watch the frogs play? Would you jump around with your friends? What would you do if you were a bug? You can write a little adventure story on what you would do if you were a bug. There are also lots of books on Epic about bugs that you guys can look up. It says the word bug, so if you just type it into the Epic search, you'll be able to find books on bugs and videos on bugs. So maybe watch what bugs do and then see, you know, what would be fun if you were a bug? What would be fun? What would you do to fill your day as a bug? Okay, so those are your writing activities, all spring themed, for this new homework packet. Now for math, if you remember, we've moved on to measurement. In our last video, we did a lesson on mass. So mass was how much something weighs. So just a review of mass, these were the worksheets that we had from last time. So mass is weight. So when we measure the weight of something, we are measuring how heavy it was. So remember, if something was heavy, then the scale will go down and the lighter object will be up at the top. So that was mass, and you've done your worksheets for mass. They were in your last homework packet. So in this homework packet, we're going to be learning about capacity. So I have capacity on here, and just like when we were doing other kinds of measurements, you have non-standard forms of measurement and you have standard forms of measurement. So let's just do a quick intro on what capacity is. So this is capacity. It says, what is capacity? It says we measure capacity to find out how much something can hold. So not how much necessarily it weighs, but how much it can hold. So if I have a container, how much can I put in this container? With this container here, it's a pretty big glass. But if I went to a lake, would I be able to fit a whole lake into this cup? Probably not, right? So capacity is how much a container can hold, And different containers are going to be able to hold different amounts. So there's this one and there's this one. This dish is a lot shallower and smaller, so it would hold a lot less than this container would. And same thing with this little teeny tiny container, right? It's a smaller container. So how much would the container hold? So if we need to know that. So it says we can measure capacity in different ways. We can measure with non-standard units of measurements, like bears or beans. So a non-standard unit, remember we learned about non-standard units, and they would be things that we could use, but they would not be universal. So for example, we could use pom-poms to measure, but a pom-pom is not necessarily the same size everywhere, because you can buy big pom-poms, you can buy small pom-poms. So this would be a non-standard unit of measurements. You could also use rubber ducks, right? I could fill a container with these cute little rubber duckies, but same thing. A rubber duck is not necessarily the same size everywhere we go. So that would be a non-standard unit of measurements. Or I have our dinosaurs from our classroom, our counting dinosaurs. So they're super cute, and you could use those as a non-standard unit of measurement, but they're not the same everywhere. So they would be non-standard, not standard. Does that make sense? For a standard unit of measurements, you would use something, and I'm sure you've seen them. They look like this. Mommy probably has one in the kitchen, or grandma or daddy, and they use them for whether you're baking or you're cooking, because you need to have actual amounts. So this would be a measurement for cups. So you could say how many cups of water, for instance, or peanut butter, or whatever you're measuring, how many cups would fit into this container. And that would be a standard unit, because this measuring cup for cups, if I went to China or London or Italy or wherever I went and I had cups, one cup would be the same. It's universal. It would be the same anywhere in the world. Same with, you might have little measuring spoons. So this would be a tablespoon or a teaspoon. And this is a standard unit of measurement, because a tablespoon for me is the same as a tablespoon for you, is the same as a tablespoon over in Syria. It's the same as a tablespoon over in India. Wherever it is, this is a standard unit of measurements. Okay? So those are the two differences between a non-standard unit and a standard unit when we're measuring capacity. All right. We can also measure with standard units, which we just learned about, like measuring cups, for example. So a container might hold 4 cups of water. It might hold 52 bears, but it would hold 4 cups of water. So if you wanted it to be universal for everyone, then you would use the standard units of measurement. Okay, what can we use to measure capacity? So you can use anything to measure capacity. It's kind of anything that will hold something. So we can use bottles. So here's a bottle that I have, for example, and it tells you right on the bottle that this holds 1 liter of water. Okay, so you could use bowls. So you could use this one, for example. You can use cups. So you could use this cup, for example. You can use cartons, like a milk carton or a juice carton. You can use measuring instruments. So that would be these ones that are standard units of measurement. So you can use this for measuring, or you can use different kinds of jars or containers. Okay? Now, some of the words that we use when we're talking about capacity are whether something is empty or full, or halfway full, or halfway empty, whatever it is that you want to use, okay? That one's kind of tricky, because if something's half full and it's half empty, it's kind of the same thing. So this says empty or full. When talking about capacity, we may use the terms empty or full. So this cup right here is empty. There's nothing in it. It's empty. This cup right here is half full. So it's halfway full. It's also halfway empty, but it's halfway full. And then this last one, this cup is full. So it's got a full cup of water in it. So those are 3 words that you're going to need to know in order to do your homework. You're going to need to know empty, half full, and full. Pretty easy. And then the last page is we talk about more or less. So when talking about capacity, we also say something holds more or less than something. So this holds less than this because it is a smaller container. So I could say this cup holds more than this cup. And that one's pretty obvious because this one's really small and this one's a lot bigger. This gets a little bit trickier when you're using wider objects. So if the bowl was really kind of wide, it would be harder to judge which one would hold more. But for now, we'll just do things that we can actually see and figure out without even having to hold them or measure them. Because remember, if we were in class, Ms. Herman had centers all over the place with different kinds of water and rice and pom-poms and all of these different things for you to experiment. But for now, we're just going to use things that we can kind of figure out without having to do all the experiments. Okay, friends? Just so you understand what capacity is. So if you can see, this one's small, this one's big. This one would hold more than this, or you could say this one would hold less than this. So you're looking at the bottle, same thing. This bottle holds more than the little cup. So this bottle here would hold more than this cup. Okay, friends? So when it comes to your homework, like the mass, the worksheets that I'm going to send you are going to seem really easy. But because you don't have all of the materials and the measuring cups and all the things that we would need, it needs to be easy enough that you can do them on your own without having all of those extra things to help you along, okay? So for the first one, this says greater capacity, and there's one that says least capacity. So the word greater means bigger, more. The word least means smaller or less, okay? So I know these look the same, so you're going to be looking at, just for like the math activities, you're going to be looking at the words least and greater. So just remember that least means smaller and greater means larger. So on here, it says, look at the containers, circle the one that holds the most. So you're looking for each line. So based on these ones, so this looks like, I don't know what that is, looks like a balloon. This is a small milk container. This is a jar, and this looks like a thin beaker. So which one would hold, remember we're doing greatest. So you need to circle the one that would hold the greatest. So this one here, Miss Herman thinks would be the greatest. So you're gonna color that one in, or you can circle it or you can color it in, the one that holds the most or the greatest. So the next one would be a can of cat food, which would be pretty small, a bathtub, a gumball container, or an egg. Which one would hold the most? And for that one would probably be a bathtub. So I would color in the bathtub. So the one that's greatest, you're going to circle or color the one that has the most. For the next one, this is least capacity, so the smallest capacity. So a swimming pool, a little beaker, a measuring cup, or a big jug. Which one would hold the least? So this is a little bit confusing, friends. We use these beakers in science. So they would be little thin glass containers that you might see people on science. They're pouring little potions into the little tiny beaker, but it's a very small glass container. I don't have a sample of one to show you, sorry my friends, but it's just very small. So this would be the least. This would hold the least amount of liquid or pom-poms or whatever it is that you're using for your capacity measurements. For the next one, you have a big cow jug. So this is probably a big thing of milk. You have a mug for coffee. You have a jar or a container, and you have a tiny little pepper shaker. So which one would hold the least? Remember, the least. So I'm going to guess it would probably be the tiny little pepper shaker would hold the least. Okay, my friends? So that's what you need to do for coloring the greatest or the most and coloring the least. Your next one looks like this. And it says capacity ordering. So ordering something from numbers 1, 2, and 3. So it says put 1, 2, 3 to order the capacity from least to greatest. So you're going to order them from the smallest amount to the biggest amount. So if we were doing a sample of this, you have a box, you have a jam jar, and you have a milk container. So which one would hold the least? So probably the jam jar. So that would be a number 1. So you draw 1. Then which one of these would hold least? A box or a milk jug? It's kind of hard to decide which one because they're both the same size. So if you think, which one? Let's get a box. The boxes can be small, but let's think like a box you would use for moving. So that would be bigger than a milk jug. So Miss Herman would think that the next small one after the jam jar would be the milk. So Miss Herman would order this number 1, 2, and then 3 because this would be the biggest one. Okay, so for the second one, remember you're measuring them from smallest to biggest, would be a dice, a can of, looks like a can of beans, and then a Coke bottle. So which one is the smallest or would hold the least? Would be the dice. So it would be number 1, which is weird because dice, can't really put anything in them, but dice, and then a can would be number 2, and then a Coke bottle would be number 3. Okay guys, pretty easy, hopefully. And then the last one is just a coloring activity for you guys to understand empty, half full, and full. I had so many really fun activities where you cut and glue and do all of these different activities, but it would require too many materials for you at home, so I picked this easiest one. So when we get back together again, if we come back together again this year, which I'm really hoping we do, then I will set up some really fun activities for us to do for measurements, because there are so many great different hands-on activities that we can do for measuring different things with scales and pouring water and all these different things. So we will do those fun activities if we get to go back together this year, okay friends? But for this activity, you're going to color it. So this is a gumball machine. So usually in a gumball machine, we have gumballs. So just round circles, different colors. And you're going to color this one full. So you're going to color all of the gumballs that go into this machine. And this one is half full. So maybe just half of the thing would be full with gumballs. And, oh, sorry, I'm doing this backwards. This one is empty. This one's half full and this one is full. So this would be all full. This one would be empty. Okay, guys? And all this is just showing that you guys understand the words empty, half full, and full. It's really hard to read backwards through a screen. Okay, guys? So that one's for that. And that is all your new learning for this week. To finish off our lesson, I know we've been reading from Junie B. Jones, but I ordered a book for Earth Day, and it didn't come in the mail fast enough for when I did my Earth Day lesson. So we're going to read this one this week. It's called Go Green, and it's a Berenstain Bears book, and it's really cute. And Earth Day is part of spring, so it fits our theme. Okay. Let's see. Bear Country was a beautiful place to live. It had green, rolling hills and wide river valleys. It had cool, shady woods and bright, sunny fields. There were steep cliffs and deep canyons, roaring rapids and rushing waterfalls. Lots of creatures lived in Bear Country besides bears. There were deer and ducks and woodchucks and weasels. There were rabbits and raccoons, possums and porcupines. There were badgers, bats, butterflies, bugs, and much, much more. Looks like a pretty place to live. The bear family loved living in Bear Country. They always tried their best to keep it beautiful. Most of the other creatures who lived there tried their best too, but no matter how hard they tried, sometimes you run into problems, and that's just what happened. One fine morning, the bear family decided to go fishing. Let's go down to the creek where Grizzly Gramps keeps his boat, said Papa. We can pack a lunch and have a picnic as we fish. Terrific, they all agreed. The family packed up their fishing gear and their lunch and went down to the creek where they loaded into Grizzly Gramps' boat. Papa got out the oars and rowed everyone lazily along, their fishing lines out while they ate a picnic lunch. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and all seemed right in bear country until... "Phew," said Sister, "what's that awful smell?" The rest of the family sat up and sniffed. "Yuck," they all cried. "What is that?" They noticed something funny floating in the water. It was a streak of dark, gunky-looking stuff. It seemed to be coming from around a bend in the creek. "Uh-oh," said Papa. "I know what's around the bend." Soon they could all see it, the Bear Country Dump. So this is like their landfill. And this stuff leaking in the water is oil. Remember we talked about water pollution and how oil can leak into the water and it makes it really slimy and sludgy. And that's really bad for the fish and for the water. "Wow," said Brother. "What a mess." It was indeed a mess. There were wrecked cars, old mattresses, busted TV sets, broken washing machines, and piles of trash and garbage. But the most mess was the bunch of leaky oil drums that someone had dumped right on the edge of the creek. Gooey, smelly black oil was leaking into the water. So these are the oil drums, and it's leaking into the water. "This is a disgrace," said Mama. She hated to see her beloved Bear Country treated this way. Mama had even been the mayor of Bear Country for a time. "This has got to be cleaned up," she said. "We will go to the town meeting and complain." "Yes," said Brother. "Go, Mama," said Sister. "Go, go." At the town meeting, the Bear family and many other bears filled the town hall. Mayor Honeypot was on the stage. He rapped on the desk with a gravel. "Ahem," he said. "The meeting is called to order. Is there any new business?" Mama stood up to speak, but another bear jumped up before her. "Mr. Mayor," he said, "I am Mr. Greenwood, and I have come to complain about the disgraceful state of the Bear Country Dump." Mama sat down to listen. "Oil is leaking from the dump into the creek," said Mr. Greenwood. "What are you going to do about it, Mr. Mayor?" Mayor Honeypot was surprised. "I did not know about that," he said. "We will have a cleanup of the dump right away. Will any of you here volunteer to help?" Everyone at the meeting raised their hands, especially Mama, Papa, and the cubs. A few days later, it seemed like most of Bear Country was down at the dump. Everyone pitched in to clean up the trash and junk. Much of it would be mixed with earth so that trees could grow on it. They hauled away the oil drums and put them in a safer spot down the river. As the Bear family headed for home, Sister was thoughtful. "You know," she said, "it's good to clean up the dump, but there's lots more we can do to make Bear Country clean and green. We can do things right at home. We've been learning about them in school." "Like what?" said Papa. "Well," began Sister, "we can recycle and compost. We can stop wasting water and energy at home," added Brother. "And," put in Mama, "we can carpool with other families going to school or shopping so we don't waste gas." So we talked about these things too. You can turn off your lights. You can recycle your garbage. Carpooling means that you share a car with another family. So if everybody's going to school, I know we don't really drive to school. We often walk to school because we live so close. But if you were going to, let's say, Jackson Square to do some shopping, you could go with another family. Instead of everybody driving their cars there, you carpool and you go together. But Papa had the best going green idea of all. He rigged up a windmill on top of his workshop to power some of his tools. "I think wind power is the best kind of energy there is," he explained. "It's clean. It's there any windy day you want it, and best of all," he added, "it's absolutely, totally free." "Whee!" said Henny, holding up a windmill to catch the wind. So Papa Bear put up a windmill to make energy. Or you see people and they have the solar panels on their house. That's creating sun power. So you can use water power, sun power, wind power instead of using electricity. Okay, and that's something we can discover and explore when we get back to school as well, because there's some really cool things we can do with that. So that was Go Green, the Berenstain Bears story. All right, my friend, that is the end of our lesson for this week. I hope everybody is doing really well and that you are safe and you're happy in your homes and that you're helping your mommy and daddy and everybody is really happy. Okay, Miss Herman misses you very, very much. And I hope that we get to see each other again soon. Okay, bye guys. Have a great weekend.